There seems to be no real penalty for saying something that's demonstrably false. It's okay. No, it's not. We have a trust deficit where, because people don't know if they can be sure somebody's telling the truth, why should I trust that person? So we stop trusting each other most of the time, and that's dangerous also for our future.
Huh. I wonder why there's a trust deficit. Gosh. Joining me now, my friend Steve Deace, host of the wonderful Steve Deace Show. Hey, Steve, Francis wants to know why there's a trust deficit in this society. Why do you think there's a trust deficit?
I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, the levels of gaslighting there. I mean, it's Jeffrey Epstein hosting a daddy-daughter date. Okay. I mean, it's ruminations on anti-Semitism from the Aryan nation. I just don't even know what to say to that, Jesse. I mean, that guy, first of all, this is what happens when people aren't given a trial, for their life. When you don't have tribunals after what was done to us and continues to be done for us or done to us. I mean, little things like my audiologist telling me, we've had this rash of 18, 19-year-olds, never seen this before, having tinnitus, infections in their eardrums. Really weird. Just happened in the last few years. Just that kind of stuff. And no one's gone to prison. No one's been put on trial. Debbie Birx is still out there running her bedazzled scarf when she should have been on trial for being where she would have been hung with it if she was convicted for what she did to the country, Jesse. And so this is what you get when there aren't any penalties for bad behavior, let alone just flat out wickedness.
Steve, I talked to Ned Ryan about this a little earlier, and I talked about it in the open. I really think this Tulsi Gabbard revelation, which was no surprise to you, about what Barack Obama did and Clapper and Brennan and the rest of them, I frankly think this is a very important part in American history right now, that this will determine our way forward, just for precisely what you just said. If you can get away with that without consequence, if the next generation of communists see them get away with that without consequence, then I don't see how we put the band back together, Steve.
Well, there's a couple of different meta points here. One of them you just touched on. I mean, we just went through an ordeal where the Democrats tried to take a former U.S. president and put him in prison for 90 years, all right, because he may not have disclosed a $130,000 hush money payment to a porn star from a tryst that happened over 20 years ago. Here we have a former president who knowingly instigated and promoted something that his own intelligence assets told him was a scam. Not to mention those exact same intelligence assets stayed quiet and mum for the next 4 years, as we were inundated with story after story, news cycle after news cycle, and including an impeachment of nothing but that story, and an independent counsel to boot at the exact same time. So if that's not at least borderline treasonous, I don't know what is. So if there's not, and that brings me to my next meta point here, Jesse, if there's not mutually assured destruction, you can't keep a culture together. And this is where we are right now. We have a political duopoly. It's pretty much what we've had post-Reconstruction in America with a two-party system. And yes, there's a uniparty element to things, but by and large, to the average American, they believe their viewpoints are represented most of the time by one of these two parties. When you have a duopoly system, if you do not have mutually assured destruction, a duopoly like the United States and the Soviet Union from when we were kids, right? What Reagan realized was, hey, because we've been so weak as a country for the last 2 decades, the crazies in the Kremlin are starting to think they're going to win a nuclear war, that they can really push the button and come out on top. And so we need to create a deterrent. They need to see that no one can win this. The only way to win the game, as War Games once said, is to win is to not play the game. They need to see that there's mutually assured destruction. There's a real deterrent. We don't have that right now. And so what happens when the other side wins, they think they can literally just say, do whatever they want to people like you and me and our audiences, and there's no repercussions whatsoever. They can have the biggest scam we've ever seen, the entirety of the Biden presidency, where he wouldn't have passed a competency hearing if this was a corporate takeover and trying to install him as CEO, let alone president. And yet his infrastructure goes up there and pleads the fifth. They should have been referred to criminal prosecution 5 minutes after that. See, if you don't have that, you can't have e pluribus unum. and especially because of the Marxism and the communism the other side has now been marinated in, if there's no natural deterrent whatsoever, they will not deter themselves. And the stuff you saw under Biden, the largest invasion of our homeland ever in our history, the largest censorship industrial complex deployed ever in our history, what we're talking about here with Russia collusion and more, forcing people by government decree to take and inject a poison into their bodies to have a job. Those are the proto versions of what is to come later if we do not reestablish mutually assured destruction as a deterrent.
So will we, Steve? I'm cynical. I know you're cynical. That's probably why we get along. But when the DNI comes out with the documents and he says, I have the goods, I've got the papers, I've referred them to the DOJ. These are crimes. Someone better go to jail. Even old 44-year-old bald, gray, jaded me starts to get a little flicker of hope in his heart. Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy because these are definitive actions. I mean, what Congresswoman Luna did earlier in the day, referring Chairman Powell to the DOJ for perjury prosecutions. See, these are definitive actions. This isn't another James Comer subcommittee just to feed talking points to people that do what you and I do for a living and get our audiences all riled up, get all the clicks, engagement, but then nothing actually happens. And we feel like Scotty Scheffler last week, vanity is vanity, all is vanity, right? We're now actually getting definitive actions. And so the Department of Justice is going to decide whether or not Congresswoman Luna's allegations against Jerome Powell are adequate or not. So someone's going to get exposed here as a clown, either Pam Bondi or Congresswoman Luna. Same thing's going to happen here on a much bigger stakes where Barack Obama is concerned. And see, this brings us back to Pam Bondi. To me, she ought to be relieved she's getting these opportunities. This is a chance for her to reignite and restart and reboot her administration there at DOJ after the complete clown show that's been the Epstein story since they gave people that you and I both know, probably on a personal level, those binders and made complete clowns and fools out of them. Now, here's the thing, though. If she doesn't see it that way, if she's tense, if she's nervous, then she has to be replaced. All right, you cannot go after a former president of the United States with a guy out of your bullpen with a 47 ERA in his last seven appearances. All right, if you're going after a former president, then you bring in the best arm out of the bullpen that you have. And so what needs to happen right now at the Trump administration is they need to surmise whether Pam Bondi just got off to a terrible start, and for whatever reason, there's more to the Epstein story than they thought, and now they're concerned about what the actual ramifications of letting this out are going to be. Well, then fine. Then you need to figure out if she's up to the task of going after a former president, and then also the most powerful unelected figure in America, the head of the Federal Reserve. Those are high-value targets, Jesse. You do not bring somebody out of the bullpen to close those cases out who just doesn't have the utmost confidence, and the team around them doesn't have confidence in them either as well. So I think that's the big decision that needs to be made right now.
Do we have people, I mean, Bondi aside, although she's important here, do we have people with the legal chops to take on the $1,000, $2,000 an hour lawyers these people are going to have? Steve, you know as well as I do, you get what you pay for, and you most definitely get that when it comes to the legal profession. These guys are going to bring an army of lawyers that are the best in the country. Do we have something that can match that?
See, this is an excellent question and one that doesn't get asked a lot. I think people don't really realize that in general, in the legal profession, defense attorneys are way better than prosecutors, just simply because they're paid way more. And there's way more of an incentivization structure to get into the defense attorney line of work. And so to me, I think you go out and maybe I'm not a huge fan of the guy myself, but and it doesn't necessarily have to be him, but somebody like him. And maybe you bring in somebody like an Alan Dershowitz and give him some kind of a special master or consultant kind of role to help you think the way that these kinds of seven-figure defense attorneys think, so you're one or two steps ahead of them. I think one thing we've seen from Pam Bondi, she's not one or two steps ahead of anything or anybody. And the fact that James Comey's daughter was allowed to sit there and lose a high-profile case on her watch 6 months after she took office just blows my mind. And then, of course, they got rid of her after she ended up blowing the Diddy case there at the end. Again, that just would never happen in a Democrat administration. They never sit there and say, well, I guess we got to take this, Republican operatives kid on because we don't want to interrupt, a legal continuity here in the middle of such a high-profile case. They would say that's exactly why we have to do it, because we can't trust them to do the job. So again, what you're really asking is the people that are on our side, are they cutthroat enough to do the gig? That's really what you're asking. And that's where I think, again, you get back to do you have confidence in Pam Bondi or not?
I don't know if I feel better or worse. Whatever. Richie Meets the Rainbow, by the way, is Steve's new book. Make sure you go buy it. Steve, my brother, as always, I appreciate you. Come back. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.